Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting, action-packed episode of Point and Click. I am Adam Razak,
And I am Jordan C. Johnson.
and today we're going to be talking about the expansion episode to The Walking Dead Season 1, 400 Days.
Yeah, how did you feel about this one this time?
Hit and miss.
Yeah.
Hit or miss. Hit or miss for me.
I feel like you just kind of ran into the same shortcomings as a lot of the other episodes in the first season.
Yeah.
That said, though, I will start by saying I think the idea of this episode is interesting. I think the idea of taking little fragments of a story without necessarily having all the information and just kind of learning as you go and adapting as you play is interesting. I don't know how much it works. I think sometimes it suffers from the problems with that we've talked about with, or I've talked about with the Batman game right now, where you don't necessarily have all the context needed to make the decisions. But I think in the context of The Walking Dead, that's a little interesting because you're just making decisions based on what's in front of you and not history.
Yeah.
That said, though, I kept running into walls where I wanted to do certain things that I couldn't, and feeling frustrated by the limitations, and feeling frustrated by it. Like they kind of write, again, like always, they write themselves into a corner and don't let you out, and that's frustrating.
I think this episode is just okay. And I've never really been crazy about it to begin with. Even back when I really loved the first season of The Walking Dead, this one has always just felt like an afterthought to me. It feels like just them maybe not capitalizing, but really trying to extend the goodwill that was afforded to them because of season 1. It's like, well, let's just do it again. But I think my biggest problem with this episode is that I think there are just too many stories. I don't like that it's just snippets of these people.
Sure.
Because when you're making decisions, particularly like the more important ones at the end, there really, for me, there isn't enough context, like you said, or any kind of, at least in most of them, there really isn't that investment in who these people are. Everyone just feels like very broad strokes. Very few characters are very well developed for me in this.
Do you think it would be better if they had cut it down to 3 instead of the 6?
Yeah, 3. At least in my opinion, keep Bonnie's story, Vince's story, and what's the girl's name? The one with the RV. I
Shell.
forget her name. Shell. That's it. Just keep those 3 stories, and I would have enjoyed this a lot more.
It was nice for me to this time, being now that I've played season 2, I feel like I actually knew who some of these people were this time, because the way this was originally released, this came out so far before season 2 that by the time I played season 2, I did not remember any of these people. I remember vaguely the stories, but I don't remember who was in which one. So it's nice to have a frame of reference this time.
I actually played season 2 before I played 400 Days, at least to my knowledge. So, I never had that aha or ooh moment when it's revealed that Bonnie is part of Carver's group, and the woman at the end is part of it as well.
I actually forgot about that, but thanks for reminding me. Oh. Well, yeah, that's weird. It's like having spoilers for something you've already played.
Oh. You're welcome, I guess. I guess.
I remember vaguely Bonnie being untrustworthy, but I didn't remember why.
Yeah.
Now, okay, remind me now. All 5 people in this group that could come with you at the end, would they all be in season 2 if they all came with you?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I don't remember if I have ever gotten all 5 of them to come with me.
Because this time only Bonnie and Shell came with me, and I feel like I remember Russell and Vincent being in the group before, and Wyatt. I don't know. I don't really. It's been so long I can barely remember.
Yeah, I got Shell, Wyatt, and Bonnie. Well, Bonnie's gonna come with you anyway, no matter what. But I got Wyatt and Shell to come with me.
Yeah, they all left me behind. But I think maybe the best way to approach this episode structurally would be maybe to go story by story, and
Sure.
just start that way. So I don't know which one did you start with?
Um, I have the Wikipedia. If you want to, I'm going based on chronologically when the days take
Oh, sure,
place.
that works.
I guess we'll start with Vince,
Okay.
who's that was actually one of the ones I found to be more interesting, just because it felt like a bottle episode, and I really liked that.
Yeah, it was not a nice little episodic narrative. But
Yeah.
my biggest frustration with that episode was the big choice at the end, choosing between
Yeah.
what Danny and the other guy. I don't like. I felt so like I don't want to do either of these. Like neither of these feel natural to me in the moment. I mean, it seems shitty to not allow you to, if you want to, sacrifice yourself in that moment,
Yeah.
because that feels the most natural to me, or find another way, because I can't imagine having a shotgun that this is the only way out of this situation. But yeah, I mean, they just kind of write you into A or B.
I just felt like that choice at the end was just vaguely presented. Like I
Yeah.
even on my second playthrough, I forgot that he actually shot through whoever you choose in the foot, and I didn't want to do that. I figured it was just shoot the change and something else would happen, and I completely forgot that the whole foot just comes blasting off, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that,
But
but
they don't give you any
too
other
late.
option.
Yeah, exactly. It's and I wanted to keep both of these guys around, but the game's just no. You have to remove one of their limbs and
This-
leave them to die.
And
it's
this
just
this makes no sense to me, because at the end of this episode, it's possible, and I know it's possible because it happened to me, that Vince will not come with you into season 2. So
Yeah.
why not give you the option to sacrifice yourself to let the other two go? And that's just it. That's the last time you see Vince. Why? What's the point of making him stay alive for that last section if he's not going to come with? If there's an option for him not to come with you anyway?
budget cuts.
But that makes no sense. What?
No, no, I'm not defending.
You
I'm-
just
I'm
have
being-
one person less at that group anyway. It doesn't. I don't
Yeah.
understand. Again, it's just like they're forcing you into things because they want it to be that way. When it's like, well, you could have so easily given me another option there. Why
Yeah.
did you not?
It's just to have. I don't know.
Or even more interesting, like they could have given you 4 options. You could have blown off either one of their feet, right? Or you could have like blown off your own foot to let them go. Or you could have killed yourself and let all 3 of you die just because whatever. Or you could just try to fight the zombies and all of you die anyway. There are so many other ways you could have played that. I don't know why they forced you into that binary choice.
Morality.
But it's not. Like it hardly even seems like morality if you don't have the option to sacrifice yourself.
It's shallow morality.
Yeah, it's
it's
nothing.
it's writing you into a situation, and this is part of one of my biggest problems with season 1, is that some of the moments where you have to make an A or B choice based on your own assumed interpersonal connection to these people, that they just don't. There are other options, and there are other ways to not be in this situation, but Telltale, for whatever reason, via limits, budget cuts, arrogance, I don't know. It's just they keep doing this throughout season 1, and it extends like right away with Vince's story, and it's just it's a nice ugly reminder of the limitations that season 1
Yeah.
that they just give themselves, and
It's just,
ugh.
I think we talked about before about the order, and that for me early on in that game when
yeah.
you walk past a table full of ammunition and guns and can't take them because they're just there for decoration, you have to use like a wooden stick for a weapon, and it's like that's like the worst way to break immersion and belief in a game, because you're pulled out because you can see an option they've put there in front of you, but they don't let you do it even though logically it's what you want to do. And that's just shitty game design. It's just, yeah, I feel like this is along those same lines. Like, if I can see another way out of this and you don't let me do it, that's just bad writing. That's just it's just bad design. I mean, there. And especially when if you're gonna force the morality choice on me between those two guys,
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a lot when I've known these guys for 5 minutes and know basically nothing about them. I mean, where's the weight in that? It's just like two people you barely know. I feel like there's no connection there.
Well, it's this. I think this is where it could have improved if they had stuck with three and developed them more. We could have had a
Sure.
scene before he gets caught and then after he gets caught and before he's on the bus, where we see these guys bonding in prison or a jail cell or something like that.
Or what if they split that story into 3 segments where you play as Danny, you play as the pyramid scheme guy, and then in the last segment it's pretty much unchanged and you're Vince. And now you have to decide between to kill one of these two guys that you have inhabited.
Yeah. So that is interesting. I hadn't even thought of
I
that.
mean, yeah, it's just like I feel like there's so many other ways they could have gone. And again, like you said, this is the first season. This is kind of Telltale's first foray out into this kind of gaming. So I'll give them a little slack. And I feel like in terms of, it seems like they're still kind of learning the ropes a bit. But at the same time, I feel like this kind of stuff still happens a lot in their games. So I don't know. I don't know how long to wait before it's like, come on, guys, why aren't you improving these limitations?
I'm more frustrated by this episode is because they've had a whole season to look at the feedback and they still just don't do it. And so it's not like season 1 where they're just this is like there really is their first big effort. It's like, no, fuck that. They've had a whole season to change that and they still don't. And it makes me just the way I feel about this episode is almost like how I feel about the 4th episode of The Walking Dead, where it's just a bunch of meh and missed opportunities sprinkled with some good stuff in there.
Right. It's like they got the best episodes get to the point where the highlights are so overwhelming that you kind of lose sight of the limitations, or the limitations don't rear their head in a really intrusive way. But yeah, this is one of those episodes where I feel like, at least in this particular piece of this episode, the limitations were the biggest story there.
Yeah. I don't even really think, for me, that there's any really big highlight in any of these stories. Like, there are some good moments, but there's nothing like, say, even not even like the death of Lee or Katja and Duck or anything like that, but even something like Lee chopping off that guy's foot in the beginning of the 2nd episode. Mm-hmm. To me, that moment is much more exciting than anything in 400 Days.
Yeah, because you kind of understand what the stakes are and what you're doing in that moment. Where this one, I mean, you said it's vaguely presented here between shooting the feet, and like, yeah, it's weird because the first thing that happens is like Danny tries to take the gun from you, and then all of a sudden, after you've been kind of buddy with these guys, you turn the gun on both of them, and they're like, "Whoa, calm down, man! You're gonna shoot me? What the hell?" And it's like, wait. What is happening? Why are these people reacting this way? Why am I reacting this way? I don't understand what's going on here.
It's muddled both in terms of writing and visual presentation with what you're actually going to do.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is what... And I like the idea behind Vince's story. It needed more time. It needed more development to it.
Sure.
So the next story, which is by far my least favorite and the one that I was bored to tears by, Wyatt's story. I do not like... I don't care about Wyatt. I don't give a shit about his story at all.
I think this story was kind of 50-50 for me, because I think things about it are... I like the idea of I like the suspense they build. It creates this sort of little like thriller horror movie set piece that you're taking place in, which is cool. But I think Wyatt and especially the other guy are kind of irritatingly written. All like the stoner dialogue and stuff from the other guys. I was like, okay, really? Like, this is not a character I need to be interacting with in this world. No. But also just other little things too, like, again, not having the options. Like, when you hit that guy, my first instinct was like, okay, he was probably a zombie. Let's just fucking go. Why are we staying here and getting out of the car, like, and separating? It's like, that was just, it made the whole thing seem nonsensical to me and completely illogical for the world that you're in. I mean, at that point, I mean, even if that were a living person, which it turns out to be, you with the way you hit him, there's no way. There's no way he's making it through that, especially when there are zombies everywhere.
Yeah.
Just let it go. You know, like that was the whole time. I'm like, why are we even talking about this? Let's just leave. Why are we even stopped? So
It's like the most inconvenient area to grow a conscience all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's to propel this long ass story. What seemed to me, that story felt like an hour. I was just that bored playing it. It felt way longer than it was.
And talk about vaguely presented too. I like this is an issue that that doesn't come up too often, but every once in a while, where because of the way the dialogue trees work, where it's not that dissimilar from like a BioWare dialogue tree, where the option that you're choosing may not quite reflect the exact words that are spoken by the character.
Yeah.
So after you hit the guy and you have all these dialogue options, I chose one that I didn't think would say this, but wound up saying, like, I think that was a guy. But I was like, but that's not what I wanted to say. That's not what I thought I was going to say based on the button I just pressed. It's just weird. Like, it's just, again, it's too, certain things just seem too vaguely presented where they just assume you're going to be on the same page that they are with what they're presenting to you. But to me, at least, they did not seem to go in that direction based on, you know, the choices given. It just, I didn't really understand, like, what I was trying to say or choose between what they were giving me.
I just, even, because I didn't get it where, he gets out of the car to check on the guy. I had the friend go because I won the game of rock paper scissors. But even if you stick by the car and you get ambushed by the guy from Russell's story, who's that hitchhiker, you get ambushed by him. You get and then you leave the friend behind so you don't die. And it's like you're meant to feel, because it gives you the text like, oh, you left so and so behind, and it's like. So?
I know, right? Who cares?
Who cares?
But
who gives a shit?
That said, the good thing about this, again, are just sort of the horror set piece things. I think the fog is a tense set piece, even though I don't want to be in it and feel frustrated that I have to be doing this in the first place. Mm-hmm. But especially when you see your friend drive away and you're just there, that's a tense moment, and you feel like, well, what am I going to do? But then it ends. It's like it ends at to me, the most intense part. It's I don't know. The whole thing seemed very ill-conceived.
Yeah, it's. I mean, even on a visual level, I wasn't feeling it, just because I had actually forgotten that Wyatt's story was even in this, and then when it popped up, all I could think of was, oh, this. That's right. So. I just I get if someone is intrigued by the visual style, like with the fog and the lights blinkering in the fog and stuff like that. It's just the story just around it is just so disengaging, just from the dialogue, just from the forced choice, the fact that the guy who just grows a conscience all of a sudden yet never feels bad about shooting at people with the car and all that. It's just, it's shit. I'm just gonna call for what it is for me. It's shit.
Yeah, I don't think any of these are shit. Like, I don't think this episode is bad. I just feel it's more frustrating than satisfying.
This is my only one that I think is shit out of all of them, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that Trains episode is pretty shitty.
I'll take the trains over Wyatt's story.
Yeah, no. At least these were, to me at least, these were brief. Nothing on this. None of these pieces were as long as that goddamn train sequence.
Love me some train sequence.
Oh God.
So next is Russell's story, which, I think
it's a little better than the first two.
Much better.
Yeah.
I like the build-up. It's just when it gets to the shooting at the old couple, that's when it just kind of... It doesn't really work for me.
See, I think that's the best part of the episode, actually.
Oh.
I think one of my favorite... that's one of the more interesting morality moments of this whole episode for me. And one that I think actually works. And I think what makes it work is the specificity of making them an elderly couple.
Yeah.
Because I think that kind of does some things to your brain. I think it could make you maybe feel... It could trigger some sympathy, but I think more interestingly, in this, in this world, it triggers a certain pragmatism where you
Yeah.
maybe start to sort of feel like, well, I'm young and they're old, and you know what I mean? Like it sounds like, again, it sounds like horrible to say it, but I mean that's kind of what I think its strength, because it actually does kind of make you go through those thoughts where you're thinking of, should I be valuing my own life more or not? Like I don't know. It's an interesting question. That's a question in real life. I'm not really sure where I stand. I don't know. I think there's like I hear a lot that people think, like the younger the life, the more value it has if you're trying to save a life. I don't know if I really don't think I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's interesting that it kind of makes you put that put that thought into practice in a practical way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, especially since it's a post-apocalyptic world, and
Right.
there really aren't a lot of old people in this world. Even in the series, like the oldest person is maybe Vernon, and even he's not that old.
Right. Or what's his name? Herschel.
Herschel, yeah. But like having like a really elderly couple who are clearly, like, at least one of them is clearly ill. It's something that
Wasn't
I think
she shot?
was she shot?
I think she had a bullet wound. I think
Okay.
it might have been like either Russell or the guy who shot her, like not
Okay.
necessarily on purpose, but
She's still unwell though. She has a fucking bullet in her.
yeah, she's not gonna last long, basically.
No. But it's almost like a relic, seeing a rarity, seeing elderly people in this world, and that is something that's interesting. It's just the whole, for me, the set piece itself, just it's nothing I haven't seen before, from like the shootout at the motel in season 1, or the bit where you're walking up the steps at the end of season 4, episode 4. It's just, I don't know. It's a set piece that just didn't really gel with me. That ends with an admittedly interesting. Now this actually is an interesting morality choice, but it's just, I don't know. Like it's okay. It's all right.
Okay, so you can. I didn't the way it played out, but it is possible to leave him, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
Did you do that?
Nope, stuck with him.
Yeah.
It's the only way. If you leave him, that's when Russell will like join the group. That's the only way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so for me, I didn't. This was actually one of two choices where I didn't really make the choice. I just kept choosing silence because I was like, I really don't know how to behave in this situation.
Yeah.
So I just kind of didn't say anything, and then he wound up just shooting them, and
Yeah.
that was it. And I was like, I don't know if that was good or bad.
I just went with my most sadistic option. I was just like, fuck these old people.
Wow.
Kill them. And shot them. And I was
Good
like,
Lord.
that's fine.
Well, remind me not to hang out with you in a post-apocalyptic environment.
Well, just don't be old and hang out with me. 'Cause no, I'm kidding. I like old people.
I don't. Fuck old people.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. Probably.
Probably. But I do like the first half of this section, because it is building up the tension of this guy being clearly unstable, and of course he's not going to shoot the kid, and I knew that, but I still felt that tension.
Yeah,
Particularly when he just looks at you and he has this crazed look on his face.
They do a very good job making you uncomfortable with him. Like
Yeah.
all like, especially all that dialogue at the beginning and stopping and opening your window for the zombie. Like it stresses not just that he's unstable, but that he's also just kind of a dirtbag.
Yeah. He's one of those people that's like, you, in another life, you probably could have liked this guy, but he's so far out there because of this apocalypse.
Yeah, that's not
it's
the feel.
just-
That's not the impression I get from him.
I just think he'd be a cool guy.
No, no, like all that stuff he was like saying about like tail and everything. I'm like, okay, this guy's an asshole.
I'd have a beer with him.
No,
In
thank
another
you.
life. In another life, I would.
Fuck that guy. I don't want anything to do with that guy in any life.
He can call me all kinds of racial shit. I don't care.
my
That's
God.
fine with me.
Oh boy.
So next up is Bonnie's story. which for me had the most frustrating limitation in it.
Okay.
Because I knew that was D in the shadow. And even if you don't, because I ran the timer down because I wondered if there was a way out where you didn't have to bash D's brains in. And you don't. It's just D comes up and smacks you and kills you. And it's like, what the... It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's...
It's like burning a bridge for something really interesting, but it's just... Nope. Gotta
Also,
hit D.
Again, another one where Leland and D are not going to follow you any further than this anyway.
Yeah.
So why not let you part with them in a different way? Why do you have to... Again, why funnel you into that? I get that they like the scene. It's a great scene when you kill her.
Oh, sure.
But it's, again, in a branching narrative, part of that should be that you got to close off some of those scenes. Leave that option open for people.
Yeah. Well, it's like, again, with this whole thing of this lack of investment, this lack of and I know there's the whole scene at the beginning where they set up that there's, and depending on how you play it, there is some kind of romantic tension between Leland and Bonnie, but it's like everything else about this episode, there's just the context is just so broad, and there really I never really felt the mixed feelings between like my supposed possible feelings for Leland and my apathy towards D. And it doesn't help that D really is not that interesting of a character. She just comes across as just really stone cold, which rightfully so, because the Bonnie is very clearly flirting with the husband, or the husband's very clearly trying to put the moves on Bonnie.
Well, and this is another limitation for me, is that if you don't feel invested in that flirtatious relationship and just basically feel like you just sort of want to reject Leland, which I kind of did the best I could, it seems weird that you're forced into that narrative. And I mean, I did the best. I mean, I understand that why D would be suspicious, because clearly Leland is pursuing something, but if you don't reciprocate, it's weird that you're kind of forced into feeling like you are reciprocating. I don't know. Like, again, it's just a limitation when they're trying to push you into what they want it to be, and it's like, if you don't want it to be that, you kind of don't have a choice.
Well, the story assumes, with the way it's set up, that you will reciprocate Leland's feelings, and if you don't, it just makes for a really just weird episode. Just especially with like the killing of D, which to me, like, if you reject Leland, it just seems especially cruel just to have that be the end result of it, no matter what. Because it's like, if you're on D's side, it's like, oh yeah, like, fuck you, Leland. I feel like it could have been more interesting if Leland was the one that accidentally gets... If you're going to have that moment, like, if Telltale is so set on having that moment where you hit one of them in the head, at least have like a situation where it's you hit Leland in the head and kill him, and then you have to feel like you have to defend yourself against D or something like that. Like,
sure,
more choices, more options, just not the same person being killed no matter what. And then if you don't want to hit this person, you get killed and it's game over.
Yeah, I mean, that said, again, the scene is effective and disturbing, and because Telltale's good at those death and violent scenes, but you're right. The bottom line here is, like, the whole point of these Telltale games is supposed to be choice, morality, decision making, branching narratives, and it's just, after it starts to feel real thin replaying these like this, and just seeing how many times they funnel you right into the same thing. It's just, why? And especially, again, like I keep saying, when it seems like there's no reason for it to happen. It doesn't seem like there would be much difficulty in allowing a different choice, but no.
This episode is also important in one big way, which is, it is the beginning of Telltale's fascination with orbital fractures.
Where that was disgusting.
I don't know what it is about Telltale, and they've done this in every one of their series since this episode. They have that moment in Walking Dead Season 2. They have it in Borderlands. They have it in Game of Thrones. They have it in Batman. They're probably going to have it in Walking Dead Season 3. And they have it in Michonne, too. So it's just...
I think it's just sort of an easy way to shock and disturb. It's like an easy way to establish an unsettling sense of something is very, very wrong with this person who is still conscious.
Yeah. Especially it's like, and I keep wondering if there is some kind of like initially when, and I never realized this until going through like multiple times their series, but they love bashing eyes out. They love they
do.
They love it. Like poking out eyes, bashing eyes in. It's just, and I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm genuinely being serious. It's like this is the rock that started that avalanche of them doing it, and it's effective, sure, because it's just gross, but it's like, and some series do it better than others, but it's like. Yeah, and then that continues with the next Batman as well, which... Have you played the new Batman yet?
Not yet.
Oh boy, you're in for another nice orbital fracture.
Oh, great.
It's gross. Probably the grossest one out of all of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of visual style, I really like... As much as I gripe about this episode, I do really like the whole bit where you're running through the cornfield and these like dark shadows with flashlights. It reminds me of the new Outlast that's coming out. There's a scene exactly like that, and it's scary just going through these like big, large, overwhelming cornfields and these like all these figures coming after you. It's terrifying to me.
Yeah, my favorite touch of that sequence is when you run down the hill, and right as you're running into the cornfield, you see the flashlights slide down the hill behind you.
Oh, God.
I love that. I think that's such a great touch, where you just feel like you know they're coming after you, and it's like a cinematic way of showing you that.
It's so simple, yet it's effective,
Yes.
which is what I think. I think that is when Telltale is at their best from a visual design standpoint. That's the lesson they really know how to nail. Is that it's simple yet effective. It's like the master of simplicity. It's great. But not the final one, but like the final singular person story is we have Shell's story, which is by far my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah, well, I think it's the best in concept, but it was the one I found myself most frustrated by.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what made it your favorite? We'll start there.
Because I think the context is there, and it's given. I think this one for me was the best paced out of all of them. It's given that context. You're given time to spend with these people. You have like the shock horror moments with like the puppy being eaten and stuff like that. That even if like, let's say it's this story just by itself. If you were to just present this one story and have it be like this little short story, I think this to me would be a really interesting apocalypse, and have it just be like disturbing enough to where it could sell it on its own for me. And of course, there's the morality choice at the end, which is, and it presents you with a couple different options where it's like you can leave with the RV, which I didn't do, or you could shoot her. And I think there's even a situation where you can just say no and have the guy kill whatever her name was, the woman in the trunk, or not the trunk, the
Stephanie.
back of the Stephanie, yeah. God damn it, these names.
I know. A lot of names.
Yeah. But I just really like how this episode just unfolded, where it was like, I even felt sympathy for the leader of it, which I think Telltale, that was like one of their biggest missteps with the first Walking Dead, where like you could have had that with what the hell is that place called? The one where the zombies are on the pikes. Oh, I forget what that's called. Crawford.
Yeah.
Crawford. Like not having that sympathetic leader there. I think Roman, despite, like the option of making him out to be a villain, I think he is probably like the most interesting character out of this entire like 400 days. I think he is the best one because you see where he's coming from, and yet there's enough moralic, if that's a word, moral based moral based wiggle room to where you could, it's like, I get where you're coming from, but I want to do it this way instead. Or you can just agree with him. And for me, like, agreeing with him and killing Stephanie, to me, that felt right. That felt like, okay, it's like, hey, you broke the rules, you stole, you could have really screwed us over.
See, I don't agree. That's not how that episode played out for me. Because I left at the end. I drove away. For me, I sort of felt like the writing was on the wall. I sympathize with this guy, but this is clearly this is a dictatorship. Like, this is like an oppressive mini dictatorship that we're living under. And I get that it's in the name of safety, but dictatorships usually start that way. Like, they say we need to get our country safe and whatever, and then they start restricting freedoms in the name of that, and then you get forced into maybe killing a person because of that. And it's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I've seen enough.
I didn't really feel like it was the beginnings of a dictatorship.
Well, but she's been saying it though. Like, Shell says it. Like, no, there's no freedom. People are desperate to escape. This isn't a way. This isn't any way to live. Like, I feel like she established that I understand his motivations, but that doesn't mean that this is like okay. You know what I mean? Especially when you're trying to, when you can see your little sister like slipping into these inhumane attitudes because of the environment she's being raised in, and it's like, this is not good. And I think it began for me with the stranger, because I didn't agree with any of those options. The options were basically kill him or let him go. And for me, both of those seemed wrong. For me, I was like, why? We've had the 2 break-ins now, and there's this guy, and bad people clearly know where we are. Why are we staying here? Let's fucking go. Like, clearly this situation is desperate anyway, right? Like, they keep saying that, they're low on supplies and food, whatever. Okay, so let's fucking leave. We have an RV. Let's just go. Why are we stuck staying here? So that was very frustrating for me, because I didn't agree with either of those options. So I just kind of chose silence, and they wound up letting him go, which to me did not seem like the right decision, because clearly that's going to fuck us over, and it did. And then the frustrating thing about that, though, is they write you into that corner where if you don't say anything, when you have that dialogue with the leader, when he's saying you need to shoot Stephanie, he says, like, you were the swing vote in letting him go, and that was wrong. And I was like, no, I wasn't. You said let him go. I didn't say anything. Like, it's just they funnel you into a way that it's actually inaccurate to what you just did, which is very, very frustrating. And then, I'm just like, so at the end, I was like, fuck this, I'm leaving. And which I think is the right call, but I feel like we all should have left. I don't understand why they forced you into that situation.
What's weird about this episode as well, it's like, this is one of the ones where I feel like the limitations actually made it more interesting for me, because, like, the group is forcing you, like, hey, A or B, and it's to me, like, I feel like this A or B situation, where instead of something like Vince's story where clearly there's another option of shooting your own foot off, I just did not see another way. Like, it's like, hey, let him go or shoot him. And it's like, well, based on like what you've told me in the past where like people come in and steal our shit, I felt like boxing you in this corner made it more tense and made it more like morally justifiable to me to like kill the guy, which is what I did.
But I mean, on that same token though, I feel like if you're admitting that multiple times you're having bad people come in and steal your shit, well, then they know where you are and you're not secure there anymore, so fucking leave. Especially when you have like a mobile home to take with you. It just made no sense to not give me that option. Especially, again, and if you're going to do branching narratives, this is the time to do it, because this episode, they're vignettes that you're not really going to see much more of. So there's no reason to not let you end it in a different way, because it's not going to matter anyway. So why?
No, true.
Why funnel me?
No, that's the one complaint I have about this episode, is that even if you kill the person, both Shell and God damn it, what the hell is Becca? Both Shell and Becca will show up anyway at the camp, and it's like, well, where's the weight of killing Stephanie? It's like, I don't see the consequences consistently ripple into the next thing. It's just it happens, but because of budget constraints, it's like we got to have them there anyway. It's like, okay, well, that it doesn't make a difference. But I think just in a self-contained story with this, I feel like it's by far like the strongest out of all of them, at least for me. Like I was the most like consistently engaged with it.
I wish I could agree, but the shortcomings were too much for me.
And then the final one is the epilogue, which I don't really know if there's a lot to say about this one.
My favorite moment in this episode is the very last moment, where you're left just kind of hanging with this ambivalence and this ambiguity, where you're just like, they're like, how can we be sure? And for me, what I said was, well, you can't be, you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of it just kind of zooms away, and these people are just there deciding what to do. And I think that's a great way to cap this. I didn't remember too much about this episode, but I remember that. I remember the ending from the first time I played it. And it's just for me. I think the biggest strengths of this episode are little atmospheric, existential touches like that. Like, actually, my other favorite part of this is the beginning, when you see that truck stop before the apocalypse, and you see, people there, you see life there. There's color, and then it just kind of cuts to the after the apocalypse, and it's just corpses, and there's no light left anymore. There's no one there, and it's just it's this great way to sort of establish the world and to sort of make you appreciate the life, I guess. Make you, see the value in having, life pulsing through this place, and how, sad it is that it's gone.
It's my favorite bit of the epilogue is that I just like how it ties together. Even if I don't like a good bunch of these stories, I like the idea of like how it ties together with these group of people potentially joining the camp of like one of the biggest villains in season 2, which I like that idea, and you don't realize that until much later on, depending on like when you played it. But I like the idea behind, the epilogue and tying that together. It's just, again, I'm just more indifferent towards it because I just didn't really care for most of these people. I didn't really like where is the emotional stakes for me if these people decide to join or not. It's just like it's like you're just filling like a checklist or like it happens so you can compare stats with people when they show them at the end. Like, to me, that's all I really felt. It was just this cold like statistical reason for doing this. Like I just was like, I felt like no sorrow when someone like didn't want to join me or whatever. I was just more like, well, okay, bye. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. It was just, I just don't care.
All things considered, I'm very excited to play through season 2. I'm excited to go through that again. I think season 2 has Telltale's, I would argue, I think it for sure has Telltale's greatest moment. And I think it has a lot of their best moments, and I'm excited to go through it again. I hope it's not as much of a letdown as season 1 was for me this time, but
no, I finished season 2 a couple days ago.
Oh shit,
it's fucking phenomenal.
Okay, that's good.
Love it. Love season 2. Aside from one episode that I won't get into yet, I love season 2. Huge improvement, leaps and bounds over everything in season 1.
Nice.
So, god damn it, top 5.
Oh shit. I mean, I don't think. Well, let me check. I forgot about that. You go first because I gotta look at mine.
I gotta look up mine too. So I was like, Jordan, you can go first this week.
Let's see. Well, I think it's not, my top 5 is not going to change. The only thing it could beat out would be episode 1 of Walking Dead, but I'm going to say, even with the shortcomings in that episode, the first sequence where you're in the cop car is still one of my favorite Telltale scenes. So I'm going to give that the edge.
Oh, wow. Number 5 for me is season 1. God damn it. It was Batman episode 1, and then number 4 is Batman episode 2. Number 3 is Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 3, Long Road Ahead, aka the train bit. Number 2 is Starved for Help from Walking Dead Season 1, which is the second episode with the cannibalism. And number 1 is No Time Left, which is the Walking Dead finale, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Until we start getting into Season 2, then my number 1 is definitely going to change.
I think so too. But yeah, for right now, we have the same number 1.
Yeah. So that's that's a wrap for this week, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Yeah. We could list more reasons why we don't like old people, but
Nah, I'm just gonna let that one be.
God. So, Jordan, where can people find you?
Oh, I'm around. At @5th_opinion on Twitter. There you go.
And I forget to bring up the damn Twitter handle.
It's at a Telltale Pod.
A Telltale Pod, that's right. I just logged out and everything. Damn it. Okay. So, and then you can find me, Razorblade Mango, mostly doing the Heavy Rain playthrough, and I'll be bombarding my channel with Final Fantasy 15 videos. So that's about it for me.
All right.
All right.
Well, next time is the new Batman episode, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't sound very enthusiastic.
It's not. Spoiler alert.
Oh shit.
Have you played it yet?
Nope, I have not played it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Alrighty. See you guys later. Bye.